In police work, typically, most of the dogs have to out for certification, and then after that, on the street, they're going to bite you, we're going to come kneel on your head, cuff you, and then pry the dog off you and we'll pick you away, right? So having a verbal distant out on the street, that's not tactically what you do. I'm joking here a bit. Technically, it's for safety. It's a tactical situation. If I out the dog from a distance and that dog lets go, that person may attack the dog, may run, may injure me. And so they subdue the person and then take the dog off, right? And so they do a lot of actually remove the dog from you. Some of the dogs will out when they get up there. They say out and the dog will let go and they'll take him away. But you don't need a super fast out. If your dog took 3 seconds to let go, people will be like, that's a pretty good out, right? Like if the dog's biting, you said out and the dog went and then came loose, you'd be like, that's good, right? And so a sport dog is going to get strongly penalized for that. But a police dog's a tool, and so that dog doesn't have to out the same way. And it's much more important that they find the guy and stay in there. And they're going to have to handle certain types of adversity that's unpredictable. People are going to really try to hurt them. They're going to have to go do it in crazy places, like all that stuff. And we have huge balances of control, right? This is the thing. In lots of dog disciplines, this is what's interesting to me. There's a balance between control and the dog's ability to go work independently of you. And seeking that balance is tricky, right? If I have a search and rescue dog and I've overdone the obedience dependence part, that dog doesn't want to work further away from me because they want to check in with me, right? So I have to find a balance. I need my dog to be committed to going and searching, but also maybe the dog needs to listen to me in a certain way. Police dogs are the same way. They have to go hunt for somebody, find them, far away from me. They have to go through all kinds of crazy stuff to get to them. They have to bite somebody that's really potentially going to try to hurt them, right? That will really hurt them. And they have to stay in there, right? So the out is down on the priority list, right? And if I ask for that level, one of the things about bite sports especially, and I'm down the rabbit hole here because it's one of my favorite subjects, right? But down the bite sports, bite work stuff especially, there are things that select dogs out of these processes, meaning these dogs are suitable for these activities or not suitable for these activities. And there's various points where the dogs self-select out of the training process. I start out, I'm giving the dog opportunities. One of the ways dogs select themselves out of the process is they don't show an interest in it. So if my dog doesn't want to do it, I can't make them do it. They have to have it genetically. They have to have a desire. So if your dog shows no interest, obviously they're not going to do this, right? The second place that the dogs select themselves out is when we begin to add stressors. So this is one of the things that's different typically about protection work than other disciplines in dog training, is that there's going to be somebody out there hitting you with sticks and screaming at you and throwing water on you and doing different things to you, right? So there are stressors, we call these, right? The things that are applied to the dog. The dog has to learn to work through and fight through these things. So there's a confidence level, and some of that is genetic, and some of it is trained. We expose the dogs to these stressors very incrementally, and we desensitize them, and we make them stronger in the ability to handle these things. So that somebody can whack my dog with a stick, and my dog's going to ignore it completely and keep biting you, right? And so those stressors, and some dogs, no matter how we do it, can't handle the stressors. They're fine up to the point. The Labrador that I talked to about, right, my Labrador, he'd bite. If you put on a suit or a sleeve, he'd bite. He had a beautiful bite. If you hit him with a stick, he'd never bite again in his life. He's like, dude, I thought we were playing. What are you doing? Right? No way. Like, that is not right. I thought you were my friend. Like, so he was biting. It was a big game for him, right, at that point. But other dogs, they're going to be actually realistically opposed. That's hard. And so dogs will select themselves out over that. And then the final and the most overlooked one is when you add the control. So there's some dogs that look great until you start adding control. And the more control you add, the less they like it. And they bite like crazy until you say, oh, by the way, there's outing and healing and recalling and stopped attacks and everything else. Nope. And it takes a very, very good dog and an uncommon dog to handle all of those things. Have the motivation, handle the stressors, and have perfect control and still do their job. So in law enforcement, the dog's a tool, right? We spend money and officers' time to deploy this tool. And if tomorrow I said every dog on the street has to have perfect control, like a sport dog, it's possible to have a good police dog that has sport dog control. But you'd eliminate about 75% of your police dogs. And that's expensive, right? They'd have to go find better dogs and more training time and all the stuff to get there. So when you're thinking of it from a practical standpoint, that's not necessary. It's actually kind of not safe necessarily on the street to do distance outs, and having a perfectly instantaneous out is not judged. It's not something that's necessary. So that goes down a little bit on the priority list. And what is the priority is having your tool function on the street where it needs to function. And so sport dog trainers a lot of times go, oh, the police dogs are all out of control. How come they don't have control of their dogs? Well, it's not that simple. It's not just because they don't know how. It's not any of that kind of stuff. It's like, we have a dog. We need to make this dog work for us. And if I start hammering it for control, will it still go search? Will it still stay in the fight, or is it going to be too concerned with me? So from a practical standpoint, we leave that dog out of control from a sport dog perspective so that it can actually do its job. And then it's a useful tool in law enforcement, and we go through that. So it's not necessarily the fact that the dogs aren't well trained. It's a deliberate choice. And more dogs can make it if that's the case, right? So control, and this applies, and this is a roundabout way of talking about control in play or anything else. There are dogs that play really well, but if I ask them to let go of the toy, they don't want to. And if I'm very strict about making them let go right away, they'll stop playing. So if I'm training an agility dog, and my dog takes 3 seconds to let go of the toy or 5 seconds to let go of the toy when I say out, is that a problem? No, it's not judged. The toy is a reward for that dog, right? I'm going to run obstacles, you get your toy. If you bring the toy back and I say out and you go, and then you come out and we're ready to go again, do I need to hammer you and get that out instantaneously? No, because it doesn't disrupt the flow of my training. If your dog takes 30 seconds or a minute to let go, well, that's a problem. You can't actually really train. I got to stop for a minute every single time. I give you the toy while you try to get it back from you. That disrupts the flow of training. But if it's a few seconds, who cares, right? It's not judged. And if I asked for getting rid of those extra seconds, maybe then my dog doesn't want to play anymore. Because the more control you put on the dog, the more dog you have to support all that control, right? And some of that is the way in which we teach control. If I use a lot of pressure for control into the teaching phase, that can diminish lots of dogs. But some of it is just the dog's ability to self-control. If you ask for that and say, hey, let go right now, show lots of impulse control right now, right? Then that dog goes like, nah, it's not worth it anymore. I don't like it that much anymore. It was good, but up to the point, it was fun before, but now you have too many rules. It's not fun anymore, right? And so you have to feel that out for each dog you're working with too, and the discipline you're doing. If I'm doing a competitive sport dog, I'm going to be evaluated. My dog has to let go when I say let go because it's going to cost me points. But in obedience and other places like that, search and rescue and those, I don't have to have absolute control. So I have wiggle room. And I might err on the side of a little more motivation for the fact that then my dog can perform their job. And maybe I don't ask for that final bit of control, right? And so keep that in mind as you add control.